think outside the box, if you will. I mean, go there, go off campus. Let's think this through. And sure enough, that's where the Mustang was born. When it finally hit, it took the country by storm.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. You know, this is the Motor City. This is the show where we put cars into the context of your everyday life. We celebrate cars and Grosse Pointe and our rich heritage, but we will make no apologies for our decidedly Detroit perspective. Today's show is one you've been waiting for. So for all you greenies, all you tree huggers, all you people that are environmentalists, I want you to send the kids outside. And come up to the television set. We're going today to talk about the great global warming, oh wait a minute, it's not that, it's actual climate change, the great hoax being perpetuated upon the American driving public. And this is one that you will remember. We're going to give you the reasons and the facts and let you decide for yourself whether or not we are the victims of a huge cloud of smog that goes over our lives with this fake problem. And to sort it all out, we've got the guy that cuts through the smog of the that's all over the information superhighway with his own blog. We're talking about the editor and the founder of thevirtualdriver.com, none other than Chris Sawyer.
At least you didn't say I added to it.
No, I can tell you this, Chris, for all your years in the industry, sometimes it takes perspective and context to
and
tell.
Age.
Well, maybe that's true.
And as we can see, I'm on fire.
You're very, very colorful
warm.
today. You're very colorful today. So, but you know, before we get into that stuff, and it's going to be the killer show of all time, but before we do that, we have to find out what's happening
in the news.
That's correct. So I'll take the first one, and I'll start off with, as we talk about automotive journalists and the career that we came from. We worked in the shadow of the Rensen at Auto Week magazine there for Mr. Crane for all those years, and one of our compatriots down the road in Ann Arbor got some disheartening words. Automobile magazine, folks, if you were one of those car people that got their automobile magazine in the mail, well, guess what? Automobile was told to pack up shop out there in Ann Arbor, and they fired most of their staff. Some are going to go to a advertising office in Royal Oak, but Automobile magazine, as we know it, founded back in the 1980s, really, with David E. Davis, is basically been told to consolidate their operations. Most of the staff is gone. Some of them are lucky enough to be transferred to Los Angeles, the West Coast. And folks, it's a shake-up time in automotive journalism. And Chris, we talked about how print journalism has taken it on the chin of late.
Well, all print is taking it on the chin, but it's not just because people are watching videos and doing everything on their phone or their iPad or whatever. People don't read anymore. They don't care to know. And
it's true.
And the other problem is that we have a generation now coming up that believes its cohort more than it will believe experts.
Yeah. Just because his buddy said that.
Yeah, my buddy said this, so it must be true.
Yeah.
And your dad tells you something else, goes, well, what do you know?
It's my dad.
Yeah, exactly.
No, the company, well, part of it is they got bought up by a conglomerate, Source Interlink.
Which is another big problem.
Yeah,
You've had this going on for years, and there's going to be a big shakeout as this goes on.
Now, they also print Motor Trend, they print Hot Rod magazine, Super Street.
Oh yeah, that's in keeping with automobiles deal.
Yeah, so what happens, well, these specialty magazines have got purchased by a conglomerate, and all they want to do is like big business, they want to conglomerate everything.
Well, this is the Harvard School of Business saying bigger is better, and then they go and put all this stuff together, they agglomerate it, and then they go, well, we got to cut our living crap out of it because you can't make any money, and I'm going to lose my bonus.
Right, and then the antitrust lawyers break it up because it's too big. But there's going to be they're going to start a new venture called the Enthusiast Network. It's a dozen smaller publications we folded into these larger theme publications, and a total of about 75 employees will be eliminated their jobs in Michigan and in Florida, and as they send their work out to La La Land. So
this is going to be interesting to watch because it's not.
How can the car writing business not be centered in the Motor City? bad mistake there, source interlink. But do you have one for us, Chris?
Yeah, here's one for you, since we're going to be talking about environmental topics.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, you know, environmentalists are blaming all the pollution, the particulate matter in Europe for diesels.
Oh, yeah,
Those
diesel.
dirty,
smelly
diesels,
diesel.
horrible
Ugh.
diesels. Well, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe says diesels aren't to blame.
What?
Are not.
After all these years, we were told they're to blame for the pollution?
Uh-huh.
So they're not.
Health experts
Yeah.
who are worried about breathing in unburdened particles of hydrocarbons, generally particulate matters that are 2.5 to 10 micrometers in size.
Okay, get in your lungs. Okay.
Well, the UN report says 83% of these airborne particles come from sources other than diesel. Remember this. Remember this. I'm going to come back to this when we talk about the global warming hoax, because this is a recurring theme here. And today's diesels are not as clean as gasoline engines.
What?
Euro 6 is right on top of the U.S. standards, so they're clean. They're fine.
well,
are other
there goes
problems
that.
there.
There's another myth we just destroyed just in a news item.
Hey, well, we're good.
Myth basher, you. Okay, he's talking about context, and this is a study that has been taken out of context. I wanted to bring this one out because I love illogical studies that are taken out of context, and I want to bring them on the show, which is why we call this Cars in Context.
That'd be a good reason.
Yeah. Okay. The Union of Concerned Scientists.
God,
now,
no.
there's a union that needs busting.
Yeah.
They
I wonder what their
compared-
work rules are.
All right, listen, guys. Here's what they did. They compared the fleet average greenhouse gas emissions of each automaker in the U.S. market to crown the greenest automaker. Here's the problem with that, because they praised Hyundai and Kia for being the greenest.
Oh, the guys who lied about their mileage.
Yeah, well, they were busy that week. What they failed to mention was that Hyundai and Kia do not offer a full lineup of vehicles like the big three, which they,
They
beat up.
wanted to, but they just didn't
They,
get through
they
the
can't
truck
make them
program.
right, and neither does Honda, which
No.
which finished second in the study. So, since they don't make full-size pickups or SUVs, which get factored into their ratings, their numbers are necessarily better. So why doesn't this Union of Concerned Scientists then compare manufacturing
If this
segments?
If this is the way that they do their science,
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, if you just did it by segment, you can find out really who the green automakers are.
and do you really buy a car based on that, or do you buy it based on a whole lot of other things
Well,
that have nothing to do with what's the greenest?
Yeah, there's the problem. If you do a little homework on this, you'll find out that this union is actually linked to the global warming alliances, and guess what? That means context and logic are part of.
Exactly, and
Not part of
green
it.
ain't necessarily clean.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Okay, Chris, give me another one because that just get me angry.
Well, in the same vein.
Oh, no.
And I think it's this one right here.
Okay, that
The
vein.
Honda Accord has passed the Toyota Prius Hybrid as the best-selling car in California.
No. California and Prius. That's the #1 car in California. How
No,
could a gas?
the California New Car Dealers Association
Yeah.
said that even though auto sales in California in Golden State are up over 5% in the first quarter of 2014,
So sales are up
hybrid models are struggling to sell.
in California.
Their market share is dropping a full percentage point from last year to just 6%.
Wow, that's even pretty
And
high.
not coincidentally, sales of plug-in hybrids and pure electrics are up as much as hybrids are down. That indicates that the former hybrid owners are simply migrating to EVs, which makes sense.
So you're not creating new customers.
No, and you're not going to create new customers until they get forced to buy them.
What, that
but
doesn't-
that's neither here nor there. As for the rest of the Japanese brands continue to dominate
Yeah.
in California,
Yeah, they do.
accounting for half of the new car sales there. But gee, the
Yeah.
Honda Accord, not the,
The
I
Prius.
guess those sales got lost in the smog cloud.
The that follows the Priuses around. Yeah. Sorry, you Prius owners. We're sorry we're bashing you, but guess what?
You're not the second.
You're driving
coming.
it. Yeah, sorry. It's your choice. Here's one I got to bring this up. If you've been reading a lot about, you should really read a lot in both sides of the argument of any controversial subject.
Well, finding
So-
both sides is hard sometimes.
It is.
but, yeah.
It is hard, but you can Google it. There's this big study going around right now, and this is by another guy. One of our, you know how we exposed the cafe, the EPA guy. This guy's a clown. This guy is sorry, Daniel Becker. Daniel, I'm calling you out. Sorry, you're the one that wrote that op-ed piece, and that everybody's given lots of play. Automakers are wrong for their inability to meet the new cafe regulations. And the big three, you know what they do? They use those loopholes that we wrote into the law to pass the standard. They're wrong. There's a big problem with that. Well, what is the problem with that?
The problem is that the law was poorly written.
Yeah, and then the reason it was put in there is because if they didn't have those, you couldn't meet the law. You can't legislate engineering.
Just because you say that something should be this level because we say so doesn't mean you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, so guess what, Mr. Becker? this law was put into effect because not all automakers are created equal, as we just said. Some don't even sell trucks or SUVs, which people want and buy, unlike electric cars and hybrids. So they get rated differently. And this loophole, as you call it, which is just a credit, which electric cars get credits, but you call theirs a loophole, it's necessary so that the standard is something you can actually bother to try to attain. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Becker even beats up everybody for not selling enough electric cars.
Well, maybe it's because like they cost too much. You know, $40,000 Volts, $40,000 Focus EVs. Come on.
So folks, you just because a car makes no financial sense to you, you're not buying it? What's wrong with you people?
This is what happens
yeah.
when you have top-down government.
Yeah, you want people to force you to buy what you don't
What
want to
they
buy.
want.
What they want instead of what you want. So, Mr. Becker, listen, why don't you just stay out of op-ed pieces and do something you might know, which is hot air. You could be a balloon guy. Go to Grand Rapids. And, yeah, that's what you can do. So anyway, folks, I'm just telling you, this is the kind of stuff you're going to get in a few minutes when we tackle the bigger problem. But before we do that, did you know I have a brand new segment? Yes, we did.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Car Trivia Time.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, because now we're going to bring it up a little bit before you get all depressed. We're going to talk about car trivia. So I'm going to lay something out to you now. I want to put your thinking caps on, and I'm going to ask you this piece of trivia, and then after the break, we're going to come back and give you the answer. So here's the trivia question. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Who opened the first drive-in gas station and where? That is your trivia question. Who, what company, opened the very first drive-up gas station and where was it? Now, we're going to put Chris in the driver's seat to tackle our topic of the day right after the break and then give you the answer to our trivia question. Start thinking. Who was it? Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cars in Context. I'm your host, John Clor. Today, we're going to be tackling the global warming. I mean, it's the climate change hoax that's being thrust upon us. And with us, we have none other than Chris Sawyer, thevirtualdriver.com. Chris, I know we're going to hit it out of the park on this one. Give them some context to this. But before we do that, we have to really tell the answer to our trivia question. Now, before the break, we gave you a question. We just wanted you to figure this one out. Make a good guess. Are you ready for it? We asked you who opened the first drive-in gas station and where was it? Well, guess what, folks? Here is the answer. Gulf Oil opened the very first drive-in gas station in the good old US of A. It was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, back in 1913. Here it is now. Chris, if you look, you can just see Gulf gasoline, something buy Gulf gasoline or get, it's really hard. Those lights would light up when people would pull up with look at that old car, and you could actually drive up.
Well, it wasn't an old car then, it was brand new.
Yeah, okay.
And those people,
thanks for putting that in context.
Those people are all dead now, John, come on.
But what a cool, thanks a lot, Chris. What a cool picture.
Well, you wanted context, for goodness sake.
No, so Gulf Oil, what a great idea. Guess what, we still do that today.
Mm-hmm.
How about
but
that?
now we don't have the guys come out and say, hey, can I check your oil?
No,
Look
in
under
fact,
the hood, do all this
you go to, honey, could you just pump me some gas? I got to check my email.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. I swear. No, don't. Okay, but that's really good. Let's get back to the topic at hand now, folks. Here's the issue. For 10 years, we've been bombarded with how the automobile is the most horrific thing on the planet. We humans have caused all this global catastrophe. The ice caps are going to melt. We're all going to die. The floods are happening. The earth is cooled to the point we're all going to have a horrible weather problem, and we've killed Mother Earth. Basically, that's what they're telling. But here's the issue. Here is the issue with that theory. Everyone knows that Al Gore told you all about it. Now we have the President of the United States, everybody in Congress, everybody who used to argue against it. 3,500 scientists said that it's all going to happen, but of course they don't admit the 35,000 scientists who say it's not. Here's the question, folks. if global warming, oh, it's not, we can't call it global warming because we're not really warming, but now we're actually cooling. Okay, we'll call it climate change. And guess what, folks? Has climate ever changed in your life? Is it now warm when it was cold last winter? Does climate change all the time? When we weren't
Have
on
you ever
this
lived in
earth-
Michigan, for that sakes? When
Forget that. When we weren't on this earth and the ice age was over the Great Lakes and it went back and formed the Great Lakes and the dinosaurs died, we weren't here. Global cooling and then warming happened to melt the ice age. It warmed. We weren't here. How dare us teensy little humans think we're going to mess with the chemistry of the planet with our cigarette butts and plastic bottles? I don't understand the insanity. So to sort it all out, Chris Sawyer, Chris, let's get to the...
Oh, I got to do this?
Well, yeah, I don't want to get shut off the air. I can get a new guy coming in for a new guy.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you.
yeah,
Thank
but
you.
the Chinese hackers will get your
I'll
blog.
get shot in the back of the head
Yeah,
somewhere.
so
Okay.
let's get to the bottom of this. I mean, you know, there are these scientists that made this report, and they did.
Let's start
at the beginning. First, the
let's
Earth cooled, then the dinosaurs died.
Yeah, well, even let's go actually to the beginning of the whole UN IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
Okay.
The big thing in 1997 with the Kyoto Protocol was they
Right.
said 250 scientists signed on to this, and they said global warming is real. They signed on to a document that didn't have the final 2 paragraphs on it. When the final 2 paragraphs were put on it, of those 250 scientists, a broad majority said, I don't want my name on this, and they were forced to go ahead. Many of those scientists, in fact, 2/3 of those scientists weren't even climatologists.
They were
Yet
just in the group.
They were just scientists in whatever place you. It's like going. They might as well have been cosmetologists, for God's sakes.
I can't get it.
And that's not somebody who goes up in a Russian space. That's a cosmonaut.
Yeah,
But
okay. Glad you
the point of the matter is that there is money to be made from global warming, from climate change. Let's not forget that back in 2010, when the president and the Democrats in office, were actually 2009 I should say, wanted to pass cap and trade,
Oh, God.
that Al Gore, the poster child for climate change, and Kleiner Perkins Partners were going to put together the climate exchange, where you would trade back and forth your climate credits. Al Gore alone, by his lonesome, was going to make $2.9 billion off that trade. Now, do you think that's a vested interest in what's going on?
Oh, no, there's no
Hell,
conflict.
yes, it is.
No conflict
Let's
of
go
interest there.
back to
No.
Al Gore again, because he's sort of the poster boy for all of this.
Oh, yeah.
He used to, he was a student of at the Scripps Oceanographic Institute
Right.
with Dr. Revelle, and that's where he got caught up in this whole global warming craze. And one of the things that came out of this was the Charles Keeling curve, which is now the Keeling curve. And what it does is it measures CO2 across the planet. And the Keeling curve showed an increase in CO2 from 315 parts per million in 1958, when I was born, to 385 parts per million today, an increase of 70 parts per million, or 20%.
They had air in 1958?
They must have, because I'm here. The thing of it is, though, that this 20% number keeps coming up.
Yeah.
In 2006, talking with someone in the auto industry about his meeting with Al Gore's people, Al Gore's chief climatologist said, well, CO2 levels are 20% above where they should be. There's that number again. Now, the thing that he then went on to say was that 2% of that problem is caused by CO2, and that cars are 2% of that. And when you do the math, that means that 0.4% of the problem is cars and trucks, and 1.6% of this problem is caused by other things that they don't even care about. So you have to start asking yourself, what are they going after? Are they going after cars because they're bad? No, they're 1/4 of what's going on. Huh? Is it freedom?
Well, here's a question.
Because I'll tell you what, I keep coming down to this, that it's control over the populace is what it really comes down to.
And I think, Chris, we should point out right now that CO2 is a naturally occurring
Every
part of our
time you
atmosphere.
breathe, you let it out.
When you breathe out, you breathe out CO2. So
if CO2 is a
so
problem,
by breathing, you are polluting, and therefore you should die. Stop polluting. Stop breathing. So if everyone stopped breathing, we could solve the problem?
no.
Okay. No, of course not,
But-
because they wouldn't get their money.
But let's also go back to first principles.
Okay.
And that is this. They talk about man-made global warming as though man is not part of nature.
Right.
We are part of nature. We're a big part of nature. The fact that we, unlike most of the other species out there, can change our environment is beside the point, because to quote an engineer at one of the big three when I was on a trip with him, I don't think God woke up this morning and said, "Cars? I didn't see that coming."
Okay, so folks, here is the issue. We told you about all the other issues facing our environment before, and what was the final thing we always told you about? Follow the money. Follow the money.
And let's not forget.
So if you are a scientist who was out of work for 10 years and all of a sudden climate change became your mantra, you've got to study. If you're part of this committee, you get paid. You get to do a 10-year grant, a 15-year grant. You're back in the money. And guess what? The problem is, if you Googled climatechangehoax.com or any of the other sides of the argument, you would see that there are more scientists, real scientists, who are not on the
31,000 climatologists
versus 3,500 guys who signed up for this cash.
Yeah.
That when you follow, guys who are not in it for the money are saying it's a hoax, but the guys who are in it are dying and falling over their swords and telling we're all going to die.
But if you really want to combat global warming,
Yeah.
if it really existed, CO2 is 0.01% of the atmosphere. 95% of the atmosphere is the true global warming gas if you look at its ability to warm the earth. You know what that is? Water vapor.
So we should cover the ocean.
Well, here's the thing. Freeman Dyson, who is one of the preeminent scientists in this or any other generation, brought a really good point. He says, how do you measure the warming of the Earth's surface when 70% of it is water? He said it is a physical impossibility to do so and then to say, this is the global temperature. He then went on to say, yes, some parts of the world are getting warmer, others are cooler, but the globe itself, no, not at all. We are in an interglacial period between ice ages. 10,000 years ago, before there was all this industry and any SUVs, it was 5.3 degrees warmer than it is now. 20,000 years ago, it was warmer still. If you ask any geologist in the world what the core samples tell you, they will tell you that the current temperature of the world is nothing but noise in the background.
It's all in a
Stop
state
worrying.
of flux.
We're not killing the
Oh,
planet.
okay. So now you don't have to, go out and invest in the giant dams to protect Manhattan, and you don't have to.
Oh, heck no.
So folks, please, let's stop the insanity. Stop the insanity. Do your homework. Put it into context, and you'll solve all your problems.
And you'll be happier.
Yeah, that's right. So now we got that solved, Chris. Pay attention, folks.
Only people would listen to us.
Yeah. So now that was really heavy. So now let's go to something I like to do with another new segment. I like to throw a picture out. You think I'd do something on global
it's
warming?
not that one in the shower. No,
not that picture. That's no
Yeah,
selfies. No selfies on this too. So this time I'm going to
Especially
throw
those
this is
kind.
called Pick of the Week.
Cool.
Yeah. So I want to do something fun, and now that in this summer in Detroit is the 50th anniversary of the Ford Mustang, so I dug through the archives and found an old picture. Pick of the Week this week is going to be behind the Rouge plant, and this is 1964.
I'm looking at the monitor.
To see that
those
big
aren't
old
Mustangs,
train,
those are Lincolns.
The train is full of Mustangs leaving the plant and going to everywhere in the United States.
Yeah.
Because remember, the first 18 months that Mustang was launched,
They couldn't keep up with
1
it.
million cars were sold. And then in the front, you'll see some of the Lincolns and the look like Mercury Comets. The cars
and a couple of Fairlanes
yeah,
in there.
and Fairlanes that were made at Wixom. So that is our pick of the week. I really want to invite you, if you have a pick of the week, you can send it to me, Clor at carsandcontext.com, and I'll put it on there. But I've got another part of the show I love. That is my favorite, Pride in My Ride. Your favorite Pride in My Ride. You send me a picture of your car. I put it on the air and tell you why you have Pride in Your Ride. This week, Pride in My Ride comes from 3 people who I got to meet, who went down to Houston on a work project. These are 3 Norwegians, Kjell, Geir, and Andreas. Their pride was coming to the
Wait a
United
minute.
States of America.
They're all
Yeah.
wearing jeans and cowboy
Yeah,
hats.
they wanted to be like Americans.
Yeah, we're Americans.
In Houston, they were working from Norway, coming here to working on a project. So they all rented cars. They have pride. Gel Works has the Camaro convertible. Gear has the silver coupe Mustang, and the guy on the right, Andres, got a Mustang convertible. They want to show they have pride in American rides, even though they're from
Oh, they're
Norway.
really popular over in the Scandinavian countries.
They sure are.
They
Okay,
love performance
But that's
cars.
not all, Chris. That is not. Now the best part of the show, where we ask none other than WMTV's own Lauren Parrott to come up and see if we have viewer mail. And maybe, Lauren, this week, could we have something that has something to do with our topic? Could you sort through all that?
I did.
Oh, and did you find us something?
I spend a lot of time doing
Oh
it.
yeah, at least 5, 6
Oh, your
minutes.
work is going to be appreciated. Thank you, Lauren. Lauren has, look, Chris, look, we got viewer mail, and one's to you.
Oh yes, of course. I usually get the nasty ones.
Oh, okay, good luck.
Okay, this one comes to us from Andy B. of Grosse Pointe Woods.
Okay.
Watches Cars and Context on Comcast Cable Channel 915, which should be HD.
HD.
Yeah, Andy, you're doing okay.
Okay.
Dear Chris, I recall when you appeared on the In a Heartbeat show.
Oh, yeah.
The
We started-
predecessor to
Yep.
Cars and Context, and talked about the lies and whys of gas prices.
Great
It
show.
was eye-opening. My question for you is, how come all of our recent increased oil and gas production for this new fracking technology hasn't dropped the price of gasoline? With them always blaming unrest in the Middle East for price spikes and us now importing far less oil, shouldn't the price of gas be much lower these days?
What a great question, Andy.
Andy, it should be about $2.50 a gallon, if not less. If we opened up the Keystone XL
Yeah.
pipeline, we could probably get gas prices over time down to about $1.85.
Folks, is it time we
But we have no place to go out and refine this because we haven't put up a new refinery in 32 years.
You mean those climatologists forced us to close refineries down too?
Oh, it's not just the climatologists. This works out for the oil companies because they are running those refineries at 98% capacity, sometimes over 100%.
Yeah, so you environmentalists who said, oh, refineries are terrible places and they should be shut down, you're actually helping the oil companies because now they have fewer
and
places.
you're making more money for
And
them.
you're giving them more money. So good job. Keep
But
that.
there are other reasons for it, and in fact, I'm working with an economist, and we're going to revisit this one in the future.
You know, folks, we did do that. You could go way back on our YouTube channel, Cars and Context TV, and go look up the In a Heartbeat show that Chris did on the whys and the lies behind gas prices. But Chris, I think it's time that we did revisit that.
Yeah,
We
it's
promise.
getting bad.
We'll do another one on gas prices. But I have one. This is Dear John. This one comes to us from Norman Z of St. Clair Shores, and he watches Cars and Context on AT&T UVerse Channel 99.
So do I.
Oh, okay, well, cool. Yeah. He says, Dear John, I love your show. Well, so do we. Yeah. No,
Keeps us off the streets.
with the tree-hugging enviro nuts, careful now, Norman, and the global warming alarmists dominating the media, how long do you think it'll be until they make auto racing politically incorrect again like they did in the 1970s? Do you think the green freaks are to blame for the declining attendance and TV viewership of auto racing in the past several years?
No, because racing's just bad.
Well,
I'm sorry, NASCAR is just put it in a box. Everybody fits the same thing. IndyCar is let's go do spec racing. Formula One doesn't make any bloody sense at all, and they've gone green with hybrids.
yeah, you know.
So it's not that. And
Yeah.
as to making racing go down the hill, no. Everybody's well ahead of that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think, Norman, part
Racing's
of it is
got its own
racing
problems.
is, the cars used to be stock cars, real cars with real, the real cars that you bought, and racing. And now it's like these plastic bodied like toys, and plus the coverage on television coverage is horrible
Yeah,
nowadays.
tell me, where can I buy a Fusion with a V8 and rear drive? Because I
I'll buy
really want one.
Yeah, so that's part of it. But would they be able to do that if they're going to have electric car races? And then we'll have
Yeah, Formula E is
then we
already
have
on the way.
rickshaw races. You can always have those. The greenies can do that.
And then we just, run.
Yeah, shoot paint guns.
Let's have bus races.
Okay. Well, anyway, thanks for those questions. If you have a question you'd like answered on the air, send it to me, Clor, carsandcontext.com, and we'll put it on the air. Chris, we're out of time.
Jeez.
I know, it's not fair, but thank you for coming along. Chris Sawyer, you
You're
can
welcome.
catch Chris on thevirtualdriver.com, and you can catch us again on another episode of Cars and Context. Until next time, remember, knowledge is power. I've been your host, John Clor. Thanks for watching.